Listening and conversation, a dying art. Hello everyone, welcome to Signposts for Living with Dr. Kirsten Hunter. Hello darling.
Hello.
we have gorgeous Mia Patterson here, and I've asked you to come again because I just love talking to you about teenagers.
I love talking about teenagers.
So we kind of join forces here. I love it.
Yeah.
So you've got, just to let everyone remember you've got an education background.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been in the world of education?
I started when I was 20 and I'm turning 60 this year, so 40 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Loved every single day of it. Loved almost every single day. Mostly, yes.
What would you say is your favourite thing to do with regard to engaging with teenagers?
Easy. Relationships with teenagers. So I started teaching way back in the 80s, and relationships were very important then. I was told a statistic years ago, and I'm not good with numbers, but the statistic was 56% of whether a child learns depends on the relationship with their teacher.
Oh, I believe that, absolutely.
And I remember sitting there thinking, okay, 56%, yeah. And they kept talking, and then all of a sudden it hit me. I thought, that's nearly 60% that if you take that away, that you don't have a relationship with the teacher, you're left with 40 to play with, whether you're 5, and I've taught 5-year-olds, and I've taught right through to 18-year-olds, and then I've had some TAFE where I've done some work with some older
tertiary education.
Yeah. And yeah, relationship absolutely pips every bit of skill and knowledge. So my favourite thing is, I had a favourite moment today. So I had a class of year 11s, these 16-year-olds, and as everybody was walking out, there was about 5 girls that just hung back, and I love that. I get this real bubble of, this is exciting. And they wanted to talk something through with me, and so I have to calm myself down because I think, I need to be measured, and we had a lovely chat, and they wanted to know something, and I said yes. They wanted to tell me something, and I said okay. And then we had a bit more of a chat, and I said, leave it with me. And they look you in the eye and say thank you, because I know I've had 6 months with these students. And in the beginning, that wouldn't have happened. So I only have them once a week. And
so you built their trust.
Yeah, and we talked about that in the lesson last week, to do with trust. It's building that trust is so important. And now from a thing we did last week, I said, do you trust me to take your books? Because they're writing journals. I'm getting them to write little journals and things. And they went, yeah. I said, would you have trusted me in the first week? And they just sat there and dropped their head. No. So relationship, as we know, as adults, are all built on trust. But 5-year-olds, they can tell, their spidey senses tell whether they can trust you. So, yeah. I love that incidental, what do you think, Mrs. P? And I'll say, look, I don't know everything, but here's what I've seen and here's what I think. So,
do you know, we've got the 5 boys, and our little one, when he was 5, he was in a daycare setting just before heading to school, and there was a teacher there whom he refused to speak to. And she kept catching me every day and saying, he only went 3 days, but catching me and saying, look, he has a speech impairment, you really need to take him to a speech therapist. And I was saying, no, his speech is fine. And she kept saying this, and then after a little while I said, do you realise I'm a child psychologist? I actually might have a clue. Kept going. And I realised quite quickly that he just didn't like her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was another prior educational setting he'd been in, and he yabbered, dominated the teacher's time. But this one, silent.
Yeah.
And she kept going. She wouldn't hear me, and I thought, okay, so clearly you're not good at listening. Good little segue.
Yeah.
And she just wouldn't listen to me.
No.
And so I left that daycare. We went out to the car, and I recorded him yabbering in the car, and I texted it immediately to her. Is that mean? And she never brought it up again.
No.
He doesn't like you.
Did you tell her that?
No, obviously. I was demonstrating. He doesn't like you.
But it's really funny that she didn't pick that up.
She didn't pick it up, and she wasn't listening to me.
No.
But when she saw this footage of him yabbering away, and probably our most dominant person in our family of 7, like, can this child shut up? Yeah, it was quite funny. So you're right, kids can tell.
Oh, they can tell. And I will even say to them, at the moment, I can see you're actually not liking me, and that's okay. That's okay. I have been known to say to some sassy teenagers, you know what, I don't need you as a friend, surprisingly. I don't need a 16-year-old, but I'd really like you to have another crack at this. And you're not liking me, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. And it's amazing what doors that opens.
Yeah, because you're showing that you're looking, reading and caring.
And mostly it's what they're showing me is that they don't like me, but they're testing me out. They test you out. And it's very rare that if you really want to, that you can't build trust and relationship with a child. Very rare.
So here we are. We're talking all about relating, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
And our topic today is listening and conversation, a dying art.
Yes.
Now, I have grabbed this from an earlier conversation we had where, you and I, we talk a million miles. It's great. And you said this, and I'm like, wait, I want to come back to this. So what's your opinion? Listening and conversation, a dying art. Do you believe that? Why do you believe that?
I 100% believe it, sadly. I'm at the moment doing a lot of interviews with 5-year-olds, actually 4-year-olds, and it looks like the seeds are planted at that stage through environment. I'm careful here what I say because I know every parent wants what's best for their children. Every parent tries really, really hard, I'm sure. But sometimes I just look because I've been doing this for so long and I go, oh, you're just getting it wrong. Put down the iPad, look them in the face and talk to them, ask them questions.
Engage.
And I hope my husband doesn't listen to this, but I did say to him once, we were talking about engaging people in light conversation who you don't know and who you don't know well. I said, listen, if you ever want to do anything with someone you don't really know, just ask them about their kids.
Oh, yeah.
And he does that all the time now and never has any trouble. And I think if you're talking to children, ask them about them, and then just step back a little and let them trust. Let them trust. For one, you're not going to ask a really quick question and then go and do something busy or look at your phone, or that you ask them and you're prepared to listen to them actually not answer and say, that's okay. Can I tell you about my dog? Or can I tell you about, something that they may be interested in? And it's almost impossible not to engage people because I do a lot of reading and around this and a million different, sorts of readings. And what I've learned is people, as part of our animal kingdom, are wired to connect. It is literally our wiring. So we're not, and even you can see it in dogs. I love animals too. But little people, big people, we're wired to, even if you're an introvert, like I'm pretty much an introvert, I reboot on my own, but we're wired to connect with someone. And the way we connect is find common ground. So whether you are a sassy 15-year-old girl, who I love sassy 15-year-olds, it's like a challenge, they want to connect too. They're just longing for connection.
They've got all these walls up.
Yeah.
They want to bring them down.
And the first thing, I think I mentioned it on the last one, but I had some 16-year-olds that I was starting is interesting. So I had a group of them and we were talking about it, and they, at least 4 or 5 out of the 12 said, I don't like talking about my feelings. I don't want to. I went, okay, yeah, fair enough, because it's, they're yours. And
it has to be a choice.
Yeah, it's your choice. And so we won't talk about feelings. So, but every 16-year-old wants to talk about their feeling.
Well, that's what they do. They get together and all talk about whatever drama's happening, and there's some deep, dark emotion going on.
Well, that's where it gets really interesting, and that's where I do my own little bits of research and data collection in and around this, just for you, through observations. What they're not doing is getting together and chatting. They're chatting online, which is all about perceptions and all about, strangely, I'm not sure whether you're up with, like, you don't put a full stop, you don't use a capital. Like, you don't put a full stop, because that's, I wish I was in with all this. I could go through all of them because they're incredible. You don't put full stops or punctuation, because it's like, so there.
Really?
Yeah.
Or is that saying I'm being too adult?
Yeah. So, hi, how you going? Full stop is like, how are you going?
Really?
it's I'm not getting it right here, but I remember the girls telling me about this. No, you don't. Obviously, you don't use it all capitals, and most adults know that because it's shouting.
Yeah.
But there is a whole language of texting that you are not allowed to do, and if you get it wrong, it can cause a roll of little. I call it the game whispers. I think years ago they used to call it Chinese whispers, but I'm very aware that that's probably not. That's maybe a little bit insensitive. So whispers that by the time it gets to the end, this person said this, and it's nothing to what it started. So their conversation is often about conversations they've had online. Not always, and they would argue with me, and I'd love to debate that with them. I might even bring it up with some girls, but it'll be, did you see what so-and-so wrote?
Yeah.
Can you believe that comment? You know, that's where they're talking. They don't get rich conversation.
No. I think a lot of the conversation is kind of what is the social gossip, in group, out group, trying to say something where they're kind of covering themselves, but maybe someone else being on the out. Not always, but it can be a theme. But our point earlier was, that they like talking about their emotions, but maybe they don't create that space to have that genuine, authentic. But I would argue that it's a bit dangerous for teenagers to talk about their emotions with each other, because they're not trustworthy, because they can be too inclined toward gossip.
That's actually interesting, because I had a group of year 9s, probably 10 years ago. I was lucky enough, I've always worked with girls ever since I started, but the school came to me and said, we'd like to create this role, head of girls or pastoral care girls. So I had this huge group of year 9s, and they were talking about talking. And it was 10 years ago, so things have deteriorated, I think, quite quickly. The more social media platforms that have come on board, the worse it's got. But we were talking about all this discussion and talking and who can you talk to, and I said to them, they said, Mrs. P, who can we trust to talk to? And I just, quick as lightning, came back and said, no one in this room. And their looks on their faces, it was like, and a couple of them grabbed each other by the arm, and I said, hang on, no, wait on. And I looked around, I said, there's a couple of teachers here. I think we had a prac teacher at the time, and I said, an adult, if it's something like I got a new lip gloss, you can tell them. But if it's something that is coming straight from your heart that you don't want to get out, then you don't tell anyone in this room. I said, they're your best friend until they're not, which is tomorrow. And then the next day you're back on. And in the meantime, it all gets out. So
they would have hated hearing honest picture.
They actually all looked like they were snarling at me. But then I went on and I said, look, you will find beautiful friendships and all sorts of people that you'll be able to trust. Certainly talk to your friends, be honest and open. But if it's something really that it's hard to talk about, maybe find someone. And that's where I have spoken to you before about the importance of people who are a little bit older, keeping their eyes and ears out and being there for little lost faces who look like they need someone just to sit with them. Time is our most precious commodity, and most people, I would say, in the world are time poor. So the constant thing that I get from students will be, I know you're busy, but I said, you know what, I'm no more busy than you.
Let's make time.
I've got time. Let's sit here, and then let's make another time.
And that comes back to earlier topic you brought up, where how important it is when you're going to approach a child and have a conversation with them to ask genuine, meaningful conversations that are showing that you're informed about their world and their interests, not just generic adult topics such as, how was your day?
Yeah.
You ask a kid, how's your day? They'll go, good.
Yep, exactly.
They're not going to go, well, actually, I've had this challenge in this maths class, and then there's this kid who's doing this thing, and I think this teacher's not really fair, and I've been having all these negative thoughts lately, and they're not going to do any of that, are they?
No.
They're just going to go, good, which means I'm not
Yeah.
telling you. And so it's actually about asking informed questions.
It is.
To really help them to show that you know them and you read their situation, and to spend time in the corners where you know it's useful to go to. And that interest also opens them up to bring in another topic from left field.
Yes.
So informed questions are important.
Yes. I'd love if I may to give an example of a recent really difficult situation I had. We have a dress code for free dress, and one of the things we don't allow is just leggings, as pants. And I'm actually fine if any of the girls ever heard me speak about this, because I'd had a bad day. I went over and there was all these girls who were wearing leggings, and basically went to the whole secondary group and said, I've had enough, and really didn't do a very good job at all of it, and said, I don't like leggings. The school doesn't like them as pants. They like blah, 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 blah. And the backlash, oh my word, was huge. And I had a beautiful 17-year-old who really took umbrage to what I said, and I got an enormous email. And I was reading through it and I thought, I 100% agree with you.
Really?
100%. I really missed the mark on this. So I went to the staff, and my position is deputy at the school. So I'm thinking I really need to role model this well. And I went to a couple of trusted staff and said, I think I need to apologise to the girls.
Did you
came across.
I'm wondering if you were going to say role model, like wear leggings.
No. No.
Okay.
No. So, and a couple of the staff members went, oh, no, don't go there. Oh, you don't have to do that. That was sort of, and I went, no, you know what? I am going to, because it's not okay. It came across, they took it as a sexist thing. So I had this beautiful girl who we are fine now, but she wanted blood. And I said to her, and she gave me this spiel, and I went to talk to her, and she said, I don't want to talk. Like, she couldn't talk. She couldn't hold a conversation. There was no way that she and I were going to talk. And I said, okay, I want to tell you something. And I talked to her about the manner in which you put things across. She just arms folded, didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I said, you know what? I'm on your side. I actually agree with everything you're saying. But it's still ongoing. I'm meeting again next week with her and a couple of friends. But their defences get up. So it's like this polarisation. So social media polarises opinions. Having an opinion, and I said to her and a couple of her friends, you need to know how to have an opinion so that you can put it across well. I goofballed it. So when I actually did it, going back to the apology, I actually got all the girls together, the whole secondary school girls, and I said, you know what, girls, I've really messed this up. And the way and the manner that I actually talked about the leggings was really disrespectful to you. And I'm very heartfelt apologies. I'm really, really sorry. I was having a really rough morning and had a couple of people that set me off, and it came across and it wasn't right. So I sort of did this big...
And isn't that amazing? Because you're role modelling owning it.
Well, I had to own it because it was really bad.
Well, hey, I'm awful. Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's great on its own, but also it's role modelling. Hey, even when you're in leadership, you can come back and say, hey, I own that, and I acknowledge the impact that's had on you, and I could have done a better job, and let's find a bridge. Yep. I think that's so powerful.
Well, it was interesting because I didn't know how it went until down the track a bit, and I had a couple of girls come and say, thank you so much for apologising. My apology was really saying, I muffed up, I'm an adult and I should have known better.
It was about your delivery. It wasn't
yes,
about
it was the
policy,
delivery.
not
yes.
the policy of the leg pants.
No, I said, look, we'll never have that as a policy. It'll never be in. However, my delivery of it was bad. So that's what I went to say to this girl, because her letter went to a few different people, and I said, it's all in delivery. And I talked to her about the Australian of the Year, and I said a couple of years ago, I don't know whether I'm allowed to mention that, but
absolutely, yeah.
And I said, look, her cause was incredible. Who
are we talking about?
Grace Tame.
Great.
And I said what she had to say was so important. However, some of the ways that she put it across wasn't in her best interest and didn't get push the cause forward. It actually pulled it back. And she will be remembered not for her cause but her delivery. So I did the same, and now I want you to speak to this, but let's talk about how we're going to do it. But the thing that surprised me when I was talking to her, she didn't want to talk to me at all because she was so defensive. And I think in a diluted way, that's what every conversation that young people have, like up until about the age of 10, I think, 10, it varies. They're very trusting and they think they're an adult, they wouldn't say or do anything. But then suddenly the world starts to get a little bit more unsafe.
So we're hitting preteen years.
Yes, they're getting social media, they're getting phones, they give information to a trusted person and it gets out, and all of a sudden the world is an unsafe place where words are concerned. Mm-hmm. So words become a bit of a danger zone for them. So in the teacher realm, it's if I tell you, you'll tell my mum. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things I'll say to someone is, I'm going to tell you I'm not going to tell anyone what you tell me unless I feel like you're unsafe. And then I have to. Everything else, and I will ask you, do you feel unsafe? And if you say yes, then I will have to tell someone. But the rest of it, which is 95% of conversations really, it's just between you and me. And it goes into my steel vault, and that's where it stays. Mm. It takes time to build that trust. It takes time for you as a person in an organisation like a college for people to know, yeah, I can trust her, I'm going to go and ask.
So we're talking about listening and conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're interconnected.
Yes.
I focus on listening probably more. The skill of people in relationships to truly listen and the desire to understand each other and to use communication to draw the other person out and to have that level of, firstly understanding but communicating their understanding with paraphrasing. Okay, this is what I've heard you say. Is this correct? So, my skill's probably more around the listening.
Yes, it would be in your job.
Yes, absolutely. And so I guess my ears really pricked when you said listening and communication. I was like, what? Conversation. Yeah.
I don't think we're training. We used to, back in the old days, we used to have a listening mark on the report card. So you'd actually do...
You're kidding. That's so cool.
No, you'd do listening activities and you'd set them questions, listening comprehension questions, and they'd get marks for it. I don't know that that's even around. I've never heard of it for years and years and years. I don't think we automatically listen as far as little ones growing up. I think they're really, when they're very egocentric when they're little, and then as they grow older, they're a little bit more, oh yeah, there's other people to talk to. And then it seems to go back into not egocentric, but again, I'm not safe. So I can't talk, and therefore if I'm listening to, so if I'm not talking, you've got nothing to listen to. Like there's nothing, the listening skill is dying.
Wouldn't it be amazing if in schools, and I don't put it all on schools actually, put it on families, but wouldn't it be amazing in schools if they actually assessed people on active listening skills, and then if they assess people on paraphrasing?
Do you know,
revolution.
I actually used to talk to one of my colleagues, and I love active listening. I love the art of it because to me, it's important for you to know that I'm listening, but for me, it's for clarity so that I can actually, it's a huge value to me if you're talking to me. That's a real honour. So I'm trying to paraphrase so I can retain the information and listen well. But I had a colleague who said to me, much younger, much younger, who said, and made a comment about me jumping in.
Yeah.
And it was just interesting to me, and I said, okay, but what I was doing was going, okay, just clarify that. Do you mean this?
So you weren't jumping in.
So I wasn't actually jumping in.
You were inviting to to elaborate.
And I actually in the end said, have you ever heard of active listening? Because what you're telling me is really, really, it was like I got a bit defensive and then I thought that's not useful. Have you heard of active listening? I'm trying to retain and hold on to your information as something really important, but I want to make sure that I'm not getting the wrong end of the stick. And sometimes when we talk, we throw out a whole lot of words. I want to make sure I get the main point. It completely changed with him, and he now knows that I'm absolutely listening. But
so let's, for the listeners, just clarify what active listening is and what paraphrasing is. Why not, hey?
Yeah.
So active listening is when you are listening to understand the other person, and one, instead of thinking about what you're going to say and reply, you're focusing purely on their camp. And secondly, you're not presuming that you understand. You are checking that you understand.
Yes.
And also, if you don't understand something, you ask for more information to understand. So you're kind of investigating to really kind of get their picture. So it's on the table, it's in the corners, and you're like, okay, I hear you, I get you. And inherent to that, you're saying you're important and what you're saying is important.
Yeah.
That would be my definition of active listening.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. Yeah, I would. And I think it's very important. Something I said to a student the other day, I used to teach communication skills at TAFE, and I'm guessing here, but it was a huge percentage, 85% of communication, something to that degree, I'd have to research it again, is through non-verbal communication.
Yeah, historically they thought 73%, but it's increased.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, when I did actually look it up at the time, it had so many different percentages, but it was way up in the high.
Yeah.
And so I had a young student who gave me all the body language, and I said, I'll have none of that. She said, I said nothing. I said, oh, you said so much. Come and let's have a chat. So... Sorry, active listening is watching that as well. So listening, so with teenagers or with...
Looking at the non-verbal.
And there's so much non-verbal in teenagers. I don't know whether you found that with your boys.
Oh, yeah.
But with...
Or clients, but kids,
With I've got grown-up children now, and when they were going through teens, it was reading their body language. And so when you say, how was your day? And they go, yeah, fine. Just watching, waiting... Trying to remember if you actively listened the day before and they said something had happened, tagging onto that. And that's where the active listening becomes, and the remembering and the I heard you and it's important. How'd you go on your bike today? Did you have any trouble with the whatever? You know, if it was like, my bike's not working and I don't want to ride anymore and why don't you take me? Whatever it was, I'm actually thinking that was an episode we had. So the following day, how are you going? Fine. So how'd the bike go today? Like, was it okay? You know, just linking to something, and that's where building. Yeah, and I feel for parents, and I feel for people who are dealing with young people, because your head is so full of that invisible load of all the things that you've got going on.
And so on the mouse wheel, okay, now I'm doing this, and I'm very busy, and da-da-da-da-da-da,
not be present. I asked how their day was, so tick, yes, they said fine, good. But no teenager, I think, has a fine day. I really don't. I think it's getting worse. I'm actually quite concerned. I'd love to get together with some people and go, what are we going to do? I think more people need to talk about it.
What percentage of the problems would you say is social media?
Oh.
Hot topic.
Just having been through my journey where I taught without it, where I raised children mostly without it, and then it came in with my daughter. It was MySpace, was it? I want to say 100%, but you know, we know that teenagers still have issues regardless of social media, but it has compounded. It's like compound interest that's just got worse and worse and worse, and it's a nasty beast. It's a huge problem. I don't think people realise the extent of it. I really don't. And I think it'd be interesting to look at a study between things like teen suicide and the rise of social media. I think it'd be interesting to have a look at.
I have a lot of people come in and they say, oh, so this happened. They start talking, and I get a sense that we're not talking about a face-to-face conversation. And then I find out their conversation is texting, and that's their version of a conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
And when I state, well, what was happening for them at the time, or how were they feeling? What was their facial expression? How eager were they to engage?
Yeah.
And they go, well, I don't know, we were texting. And I'm like, exactly.
Yeah, it's not. And then when you look
it's not a conversation.
It's not. And when you look at percentages like 73 or 80% body language, you're getting none of that. So all you're getting is that last little percentage.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing is that if I've ever got young teachers, I love working with young teachers as well. You can get very defensive. So if you've got a student that doesn't like you, it's very easy to just pass them off, go, well, you don't like me, and I'm,
I see it as a challenge.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
I have some kids that come in here, clients,
yes.
And if they're not warm, I'm like, fantastic, let's go.
Yeah. I think teachers are very worn out, and
yes.
I think the load on them that is a social, emotional...
Well, they've got another 27 or 32 kids in the class.
Yep. Yeah, and they walk in, each one of them, say 25 students, 16-year-olds, with... The pressure is not just academic, but it's I've got to accommodate. I know you're having issues with this, and so many diverse issues,
learning issues, attentional issues, neurological issues, emotional issues.
Exactly. And attention spans are. I wish I could run off the figures. I did read a book just recently that gave all the attention spans, like the concentration span, the focus time, very small. So just changing up conversations, moving them around, and you're moving 16-year-old boys around. If you're moving them, that's a slow process, but it's because I don't want to move, but if they don't move, then they're actually not focused. So one of my favourite expressions, and I'm sure it's really old-fashioned and very uncool, is I'll walk in, I'll say, okay guys, what's the word on the street in year 11?
Oh no, that's really embarrassing.
They know that.
Do they look at you and go, oh my gosh?
But they know. They are one of my other friends.
You're like,
embrace your dagginess. Yes,
purposely daggy.
Yes. So what? And they all go. I said, no, seriously, what's going on? What's happening? And because it's so daggy, it's like you're not cool. So what can possibly go wrong here?
We'll throw you a bone.
Yeah.
And you're laughing at yourself, so they're not taking it too seriously.
Yeah. I've had my own children say, "Mum, don't say that." I actually swore really badly once, and one of my children went, "Mum, please don't ever do that again. It sounds really bad." Students, children, teenagers love daggy. They love it because it sort of brings out that really authentic.
Well, you're not trying to be cool, are you?
No.
Just giving that
I couldn't be cool if I tried. I've never been cool. I never will be cool.
We're talking about teachers.
Yes.
So in that context.
In that context, to just persist, because teachers now, when you look at it, they're in their 20s. So
a lot.
We've got, or 20s or 30s, so we've got young people who have had social media.
Absolutely.
Who haven't had that beautiful art. When I say the art of conversation, the art of listening, the art of going, wow, that's interesting. Tell me more about that, and it sounds really, trite, but actually finding interest in someone else, which is again hard.
Can I say, personally, I really love the challenge of conversation.
Yes.
Because, I guess I'm pretty natural at it, but when I meet somebody who I'm not naturally drawn to, I don't, it's not an immediate conversation that's launching out of my brain. I actually enjoy the challenge of finding something that they have going on that I am authentically interested in. And I make it a point that I never fake a conversation.
No.
Because you can, firstly, I don't want to waste my time, but they can tell. So finding, I love, it's like a scavenger hunt, what's a common ground? What can I possibly ask you that conversation is interviewing questions, showing interest, doing a little bit of share but not overtaking, and then looking for a ripple effect where you can go, but it needs to be authentic. And so I actually think conversation is fascinating. It's a bit of a Rubik's Cube. Really love it. And, I just want to give a little bit of a definition, I think, on showing interest starting when it's hard.
Yes. And I'd love you to tell me if you've never ever met anyone. We all meet people who say, oh, I can't talk to that person, like they just shut down. And I straight away go, what's going on in that person's life, because there's not a person on the planet that doesn't want someone to connect with them.
I once had a lady, and every time I would ask her something, she'd give me one word reply.
Yeah.
And she was excruciatingly shy and just not a conversationalist. But she came here and wanted to talk, but she didn't talk.
No.
And when I'd ask her something, somehow she'd answer an open question with one word. And it was hard. It was like pulling teeth.
Did you get there in the end?
I actually said to her, I'm going to ask you something, and you tell me your reply. She gave me one word. And I said, now, I've just asked you an open question, and somehow you've given me a one-word answer. What's going on in your head? What are you thinking? How many drafts have you had before you've come up with that word? How anxious do you feel?
Yes.
In replying?
Anxiety. Yes.
If you could really help me understand you, what would you want me to understand about you? So I basically went and dived deep into her head, and it's probably shocked her. And from that, I got a bit of a dribble, and we went from there. But that's not you can't normally intrude somebody's mind like that. But it was an interesting exercise that, you can get anyone talking.
You can, and that's a high trust situation. So she would have a natural level of trust with you.
And a high skill situation.
Oh, high skill, yeah.
To be honest, I don't think many people would quite
No, a lot of people would give up.
Yeah, they would.
And that's where it's really sad. And that happens in schools. That happens where people they don't want to talk. And I think, no, that's not actually true. They may not want to talk a lot, but everyone has a bit of it. It's the connection again. But I think something I was thinking of the other day is I thought, I wonder if you can put, because I said something similar. What's going on in your head when I ask you that? And I'm wondering if they can put the sentences in their head into verbal sentences out loud. I don't think that is a skill that we have.
Well, no, I think some people just draft 1, draft 2, draft 3. Maybe it won't go well, I won't try.
Yeah.
And that's practice and exposure.
Yeah.
So wanting to kind of wrap up everything, which is a very ambitious thing, I would see that what parents and teachers can do is ask informed questions that show that you are interested in the individual and you're interested in what's going on for them, and not generic questions is incredibly important. Show active listening with continuing to ask questions without prying, and paraphrase to show that you're understanding. So, you might say to me, oh, I'm just really overwhelmed at the moment with how many, reports I've got.
Yeah.
And I might say, oh, it's a lot of reports, I'd be overwhelmed too. Yeah. So it's not like I hear that you're saying that you've got a lot of reports to do and you're overwhelmed. So you don't need to like literally parrot it back, but you just need to use language to show understanding. And conversation being something that you can be authentic and just take time.
I was just waiting for you to say that. The biggest ingredient is time. No matter who you're talking to, 5-year-old or an older person.
Yeah.
And, just have the time to sit and listen, and all those other things will come. And the other thing is work. It's high energy. I think listening requires a lot of energy, and I think conversation requires energy, and practice it.
But it's worth doing because...
Absolutely.
Because...
The conversation.
Why is it so important to do listening and conversation? Why does this all matter?
Why does it all matter?
Yeah.
Wow. That is a very huge question. I think our mental health crisis in our teens and our young people and our older people absolutely depends on getting it right.
Because otherwise people are isolated.
They're isolated, and we're already physically isolating ourselves more and more. Our entertainment's on our phones by ourselves, in our houses on our own.
Yep.
We're not community-minded as much anymore, so we're not getting the practice.
So listening and conversation is about connection.
Absolutely.
It's about building bridges. It's about shared interests. It's about feeling that people understand us and they care.
Yeah.
And also, it's incredibly important in our future work fields as well, because we need to be able to have people skills.
We do.
Incredibly important.
Yeah. And I think another thing just to remember is not to get defensive if it doesn't work, and not to take it personally. I mean, as I said, I do so much data collection. I have all these guinea pigs that
Yeah.
I trial and test, and I've been doing it for a long time, and it's visually important. You can see the light go on in people's faces when you stop, you sit, you listen.
And I think a big part
Paraphrase.
of not being defensive is to realise that if people give you a bit of a hard wall
Yeah.
back, it's usually their insecurity,
Yeah,
their issues.
they're testing you.
Probably not about you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that.
Yeah.
If anything's easy, I get bored. I like a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. And they probably haven't done it with too many people, so you're probably the first one that is going to...
Well, okay, can I say this? This happens probably, I would say, easily half of the child and teenage clients that I see is that I have the session and then I work out with the child and teenager's permission what I can share with the parent, because that's a big factor. I work that out very clearly. And then I bring the parent in and then I say, hey, this is what we're talking about, da, da, da. And then the parent says, oh my gosh, they don't say any of that to me.
No.
And, it really is this opening up and it's creating that space and that time. So
That's a beautiful way of putting it. And as I'm listening to you now, I'm thinking that's happening with that one child. Imagine at that child's, say, college or in their age group, the hundreds that it's not happening with. So if people could take just a tiny snippet of what you do and do it with their own children or their neighbours' children or whoever.
Well, you do as well, my darling. That's why we're here.
Yeah, but it would slowly change the world.
That's it.
Yes.
And it's doable and it's all about showing care.
Yes, absolutely.
Mia, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Everyone, we have got gorgeous Mia Patterson here and I've really enjoyed this
Oh,
conversation.
it's been lovely. Lovely chat.
Okay, everyone. So if you want to jump online, my website is kirstenhunterauthor.com, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, would you believe?
Oh, wow.
Not too sure what I think about that. Kirsten Hunter Author and Twitter, Kirsten Hunter AU. Thank you, darling.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.